It's getting close to the end of the day. Do you feel sometimes that by the end of the day you feel worried about all the things you still have to do? On the other hand, do you forget all the work you've done so far today to make it to where you are right now? Too often we have goals and big goals, and what happens is we forget to break them down in smaller pieces. So instead of attacking a big part of a project, how about you break it down in smaller pieces and then you address one small piece at a time? You'll notice that the work will get done, you'll feel rewarded, and you get closer and faster to your goal. Welcome to my channel. My name is Alain Faber, and my goal is to help you realize that the more you learn, the more you get new skills, the more you become valuable to make the world a better place. Stay with us. I'll show you how you can get to the next level. I know it's mid-August, and some of you will say, well, as a teacher, you should be on vacation. But guess what? I'm already thinking about September. And today I spent an hour to maybe 2 hours to think about September. And you know what happened? I looked at the big picture, the fact that COVID-19 is there. I looked about everything I had to do, and I spent the first hour freaking out. Yes, I did. I freaked out because I looked at all the project and the tens of hours that I'm gonna have to get ready for September, and all the work I need to get done before I get to the end of the semester, and all of this not knowing what the plan will be related to the beginning of school and how everything will work out. So what did I do? I spent the second hour breaking it down in small pieces. I used chart paper, divided it in small pieces, and guess what? I know what I'm gonna do a little bit every day until September. Am I freaked out? I'm nervous still because I know there's a lot of work to do. Am I so stressed that I feel I cannot do anything? No. And that's why breaking down projects in smaller pieces will allow you to make sure that you get successes, small successes. You will feel rewarded, and you'll be able to get to the next level. I remember a few decades back when I was a geologist and we had to work on a project. I remember that it was always exciting because when you had a project, there's a few things you could do. You could go and see what was the area. You could do some mapping to see the rocks that was involved. You could do soil sampling. You could also look at till, so it's glacial sediments. You could look at the drilling so that you could see what the rock was like under. Not to forget the measurements we got from geophysics. All of these were part of a great summer and great project. But guess what? We always had to figure out, do we have to cut down some of the projects because budget was sometimes something to consider. So what we realized is that when you had a project, it was to divide it in smaller pieces. So we were doing the first step, some mapping, so we had a good idea what the rocks was like. We did some geophysics, so we could figure out if there was some anomaly. And then we prepared a small drilling, diamond drilling program. And that was to bring us some satisfaction. And the reason for that is if we were successful, we were patting each other on the back, saying that was a great work. But that allowed the company to say, hey, that's an interesting project. How about we give you some more money for next year? And there you go. And if it did not work, well, it happened. Sometimes the project was put aside. But when we had success, that was exciting. Because the little work we had done so far was the stepping stone for something bigger. And that allowed us the year after to do more diamond drilling, more samples, and so on. So there you go. When you have a project, you need to break it down in smaller pieces so that you can be mindful of the project, be mindful of the budget, be mindful of the team you have as well. And don't forget, it's important to celebrate successes. As a science teacher, another great idea that I love is project. When you have a project in a class, in science class, it's amazing because you spend some time looking at a topic, and it's chemistry or electricity, optics or climate change. And then you had the students find a question that they like, because finding a question that was of interest for them gave them a chance to have an hypothesis and then for them to test the hypothesis. Now, the beauty of that is always the fact that when you have a question, a hypothesis, You want to answer the question. And the beauty was that they had to think of materials to get, they had to think of the research they had to do. And that's the whole idea of thinking about financial education, thinking about the scientific process, so that we could use the project as an inquiry, inquiring a question, in finding the answer. Now the beauty is sometimes there were no answers because it was a bad question or a bad hypothesis, but learning happened anyhow. And that's why science is so amazing for students. Here are my 3 tips for you to be able to achieve success with large projects. My first tip is for you to look at the overall project and break it down in smaller pieces. So you'll take your project, you'll divide it in different pieces that needs to be done. You'll realize that maybe you need some help, and in which case you'll divide it in job descriptions so that at the end of the first step, you'll have your project in smaller pieces. You'll know who to delegate some of the work to do, and you know what to do. That is the first tip. My second tip is for you to get your agenda. Because if you get your agenda, you'll be able to figure out how much time you have to do your project, and you'll know how to divide the work with the days to come, the weeks to come, or the months to come, so that you'll be able to reach milestones. Milestones are important when you try to get the big projects done, because milestone gives you a chance to see how well you do or how behind you are. It will give you a chance to reward yourself. You'll be able to pat yourself and your team on the back, saying, good work, good job done, or here are the few things we need to address for the next milestone. That is a must. My third tip is for you to celebrate small victories. Too often we get into a project, we know what we have to do, we get something done, and then we say, okay, this is done, let's get to the next place, the next part. On the other hand, you need to celebrate small victories, small successes. You need to do that for yourself and for your team so that you can re-energize yourself for the next part. If you forget to celebrate, you'll notice that at some point, what's the value of doing what you're doing? Celebrating the small step is important for you, and you notice that if you have a family, celebrating small steps is something that is priceless. On that note, I'm going to put here beside me the link to my playlist for my best life journey, so that you can look at other videos where you can learn how to best succeed in your projects and how to make the world a better place. I'll see you in the next video.